Okay, let's get started. We'll have more people join us as we go along tonight. Thanks everybody for coming. The baseball season has started. I want to pass on the word to you that I did have a nice conversation with Larry Miggins on Saturday. Larry has turned 95, and he received a lot of publicity last week because he played in Jackie Robinson's first game in organized baseball. He was playing for the Jersey City Giants, and of course Jackie was playing for Montreal. And Larry was telling me about they had never seen Jackie Robinson play. They heard about his reputation, but they didn't know anything about him. So they went out and watched batting practice. And apparently Jackie had an outstanding batting practice. So when it came time to talk about defenses, Larry's skipper said, play back, because he's a power hitter. So Larry did. First bat, up. Jackie hits the ball to shortstop, ground ball to shortstop. Second time at bat, he bunts and beats out the hit. First hit in organized baseball. Promptly steals second, promptly steals third, and Larry Miggins is playing third. Third time up, Jackie hits a triple. And they could tell Jackie's a pretty good ball player. Fourth time up, Jackie bunts again with Larry playing back. And he steals second. I'm not sure if he stole third the second time or not, but of course Larry takes credit for helping him get 2 hits in his first game. And then he told me something I've never heard before. He said, I played against Jackie a number of times that year, and he never, ever bunted against me again. I played in. I thought that was pretty interesting. He never got a bunt against me. But Larry's doing well. He's written a song, as some of you know, about Mark McGuire, and he wants to sing it to us at our next time we get together. And we're shooting for September as our get together. Some of you have heard the song, some of you have not, but it's a pretty funny song that he's written about Mark McGuire. He likes Mark a lot. Yeah, absolutely. Talking about going forward a little bit, Joe Thompson is going to be the host for our next meeting in May, and we're looking for a few speakers. I'm going to be in Virginia with my wife. We're going to celebrate our wedding anniversary and bring in everybody, all our family, and so we're looking forward to that. But Joe's volunteered to finish it and do a great job, I'm sure. Another thing we want to know is there interest in June to go to a Skeeters game? We've gone to Skeeters games before. They have super facilities, and I'm sure Brian can talk about the upgrading that has been done here in Sugar Land, comparable to what they did in Buffalo. It's a little pricey. It's $40 to go because we get to sit in air-conditioned area and have a super meal. So we're going to be asking who wants to participate and go to the Skeeters game.
Is it 40 or 50?
40 for a group.
Okay.
And they'll get more people, maybe less, but I've talked to those people over there.
And if we go on Monday again, Carl, we can have dollar margaritas.
He just joined up, man.
Mike's ready for that.
That sounds good to me.
Is there a minimum number they need?
What's that, Tony?
Is there a minimum number that they need for a?
Yeah. Yes, 20.
20?
20. Yeah. We should be able to do that. We've always had 20 in the past, although I must admit Dick Biley bought 12 tickets himself for the Boys Clubs people last time we went.
Yeah, but now we have players, and when everybody gets healthy, they're going to have a lot of, instead of never-wears or has-beens, they're going to have a lot of this year's major leaguers on their squad probably in June, because these guys are called up to replace Altuve and Bregman and the other guys. They should be back down in Sugar Land now.
Okay, we're fortunate to have 2 speakers tonight. One is Brian Frank, and Brian has spoken to SABR before. He was born in around the Buffalo area. He's an author and a teacher and an attorney, and he's been going to games since his back in the days they called it the Rock Pile, the old Memorial Stadium. Brian, we went to no expense. We spared no expense to bring in a special commentator, somebody who did play-by-play for the Buffalo Bisons back in the day. So it took a lot of effort to get Greg to come, but thanks. We do have our own representative.
I only missed 1 month. Come on.
I know, and that month came a day early or something. Right? Incidentally, Cal will be along after a while. He told me he'd be try to get in tonight. He had a conflict, but he would try to join. I want to turn the meeting over to you, and we're looking forward to your presentation. Thank you for being with us.
Let me just share my screen here. Hold on one second. Okay. Can you see my PowerPoint okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. My name is Brian Frank, as he said. I run a website called the Herd Chronicles, which is dedicated to preserving the history of Buffalo Bison baseball and professional baseball in Buffalo. I grew up in Buffalo, but I've been a Blue Jay fan my whole life. And I was fortunate to have media credentials last season. Even though no fans were allowed into the game, I had media credentials, so I was allowed. I attended most of the games in order to document them for historical purposes. I took a lot of photographs, which you'll see many of them today. And the focus of my presentation is really the transformation of Salem Field from a AAA minor league ballpark by the Blue Jays in order to be a major league ballpark. And also the preparation that's going into it this year. They're making some more permanent changes in the event that the Blue Jays return in 2021. But it is the return of Major League Baseball to Buffalo. So really quickly to start off here, I want to just talk about the history of Major League Baseball in Buffalo. We were home to 3 Major League teams in our past before the Blue Jays. First, we had the National League Buffalo Bisons, which were very early in the National League's history from 1879 to 1885. And they were actually a pretty good ball club. The National League only had 8 teams at the time, and they finished 3rd on 4 different occasions. So they didn't win any pennants, but they 3rd place 4 times, so not too bad. But the thing that really stands out about this National League team is the fact that they had so many future Hall of Famers, many of whom were in their prime when they played for Buffalo. The first of which was their ace pitcher, James Pud Galvin, who was the first pitcher to win 300 games. He won 200. He ended up winning 363 Major League games. 218 of them came when he was with the Bisons, and he also pitched 2 no-hitters with the Bisons. Another future Hall of Famer that they had was Dan Bruthers, who was one of the best hitters of the 19th century. He won 4 National League batting titles, including 2 when he was with Buffalo. Deacon White went on to the Hall of Fame as well. He played 5 seasons in Buffalo and hit .301 during his time in Buffalo. Jim O'Rourke was their player manager for 4 seasons, and he won the 1884 National League batting crown. So all those guys were really in their prime when they played for Buffalo. And then another player who would go on to make the Hall of Fame that a lot of people don't realize played for Buffalo was old Haas Radbourne, who's best known for winning 60 games with Providence in 1884. But early in his career, is I believe it was his first professional team, he signed with Buffalo to be kind of their second pitcher to Pud Galvin. But he injured his arm before the season started and wasn't able to pitch. So he actually played in 6 games for Buffalo in 1880. All of them came at either second base or right field. He was never able to pitch, so they released him, and he went on to sign with Providence, and the rest is history there. Buffalo also had a team in the 1890 Players League, which is considered a major league. That team was pretty much a disaster. They finished in last place, went 36-96, 46 and a half games out of first place. But they did have a couple of notable players on that team. The player on the left would go on to become one of the great managers of all time, Connie Mack. He was the team's catcher and was also an investor in the team because it was the Players League. The players were owners of the team. He had a good year. He had 266 as their catcher, 53 RBI. And then the man on the right is William Hoy, who was the first deaf player in Major League history. And he played center field for them that season and hit 298. And finally, Buffalo also had a team in the Federal League, which was a league that existed in 1914 and 1915 for 2 seasons. Buffalo's team was called, the first season they were called the Buffeds, and then the second year they adopted the name the Buffalo Blues. They were pretty good. First season they had an 80-71 record, finished in 4th place. Second season they finished 4 games under 500. The 2 most notable players from that team are probably Hal Chase, who you see on the left here, and he's actually wearing his Buffalo Blues uniform in that picture. He hit 347 in 1914, and then in 1915 with the Blues, he led the league in home runs with 17. His career, as many of you know, was kind of tainted later on because he was involved in a lot of gambling and alleged game-fixing disputes as well. Russ Ford on the right was their ace pitcher in 1914. He was an Emery ball pitcher, and he went 21-6 with a 1.82 ERA in 1914. These 2 box scores here are the box scores for a doubleheader that was played on September 8th, 1915. And the reason that's a significant day is that was when the Blue Jays came here, these games were believed to be the last Major League games played in Buffalo. It was a doubleheader between the Buffalo Blues and the Baltimore Terrapins. And again, at the time, Buffalo won both games. At the time that the Blue Jays came here, this was believed to be the last Major League games played in Buffalo. And I emphasize the believed to be because, as everyone knows, recently Major League Baseball said that they were going to start counting some Negro League games as being Major League. Some Negro League games between 1920 and 1948. Buffalo didn't actually have a Negro League team during that period. However, we had lots of games played in Buffalo by Negro League teams that were kind of like barnstorming their way through. This picture is of the Cleveland Buckeyes, who were a dominant force in the Negro American League in the late 40s. And they played many, many games in Buffalo. The last game that I could find from this period that might be considered Major League now was that this clipping is about that doubleheader. It was between the Cleveland Buckeyes and the Chicago American Giants. And it was played on September 8th, 1948. And it counted in the, as far as I can tell, it counted in the Negro American League standings, both games. So I believe that these games would be considered, or will be considered, Major League. And the amazing thing about the date, September 8th, 1948, is it's exactly 33 years after that Buffalo Blues game that I just showed you. So 33 years to the day was this doubleheader, which will likely be considered Major League as well. But as most of you know, and as we were talking about before we came on here, Buffalo has a long history, long proud history of being a minor league city. For most of that time, we've been in the International League, although we were in the American Association for a time in the 1980s and 1990s. We were also in the Eastern League in the 79 into the early 80s. But for most of the time, we've been in the International League. And this is a banner that hangs at Salin Field in Buffalo when the Bisons are playing there to honor some of the great teams that we've had. I think this might be the same photo or very similar to the one that Greg shared before. In 1988, the Buffalo opened Pilot Field. It was called Pilot Field at the time. Today it's called Salin Field. It was originally built to try to attract a major league expansion team here, knowing that MLB would be expanding in the early 90s. The stadium was built, when it was built, it held 19,500 people. However, they built it so that they could add on an upper deck if we got a major league team. And when they would have added on the upper deck, that what you see now as the upper deck would have become the mezzanine. And if we would have gotten a major league team, then it would have held 41,000 people. But in 1991, Major League Baseball awarded those teams to Denver and Miami. We didn't get our major league team. And so we've been in the International League ever since. Another really significant thing about Salin Field, or Pilot Field as it was called then, is it was really the first retro ballpark. It kind of started the whole retro ballpark movement. Most of the stadiums back in the 70s were kind of the big like cookie cutter stadiums. And a lot of people now look back and think like Camden Yards kind of started that whole, throwback movement. But Pilot Field was actually built 4 years before Camden Yards and was designed by the same architectural firm that designed Camden Yards and a lot of the retro ballparks that would come after it. And you
Not
can
much
see
foul territory.
What's that?
Not much foul ball territory
No,
there.
there really isn't. There really isn't, and I'll actually kind of touch on that here in a few minutes as well. And you can see how it's like right downtown too. It's right among a lot of historical buildings that are downtown. They kind of built a downtown ballpark that blended in with the old buildings and has that retro kind of feel to it. I could probably do like a whole presentation on the ballpark highlights since 1988. But some of the things that really stand out are the attendance. Early on, it was a hot ticket and it was really hard to get a seat there. I was in high school at the time that it opened. I remember, buying tickets before the season started. They had 6 straight years of drawing over 1 million people, setting all kinds of minor league attendance records at the time. They won, then in the 90s, they won the 1997 American Association Championship. That was the last season of the American Association. And then they've won 2 Governor's Cups, which is the International League Championship. Some other highlights from its time, they've hosted 2 AAA All-Star games, including the first one. And 1 no-hitter has been thrown at the park. In 1997, Bartolo Colon threw a no-hitter for the Bisons. And the Bisons have been affiliated with the Blue Jays since 2013. Toronto is only maybe about an hour and a half across the border, so it's not very far away. This is a sign that was located on the 198, which is the main highway that brings you into the city of Buffalo. This was put up like right after the Blue Jays announced that they'd be coming to Buffalo in 2020. Last year was really a roller coaster ride for professional baseball in Buffalo. It started early on when the minor league season was postponed. Then on June 30th, the minor league season was canceled. And at that point, we didn't really think there was going to be professional baseball played in our city because of COVID. July 18th, the Canadian government denied the Blue Jays' request to play in Canada because they didn't want teams crossing the border. That was 6 days before the shortened major league season was supposed to start. So 6 days before the season was going to start, the Blue Jays were denied permission to go to Toronto. So their front office was really scrambling, trying to find a place to play. The first likely option for them, they were going to go to Pittsburgh. They came to an agreement with the Pirates to share PNC Park, but the Pennsylvania Department of Health denied their request to do that because of COVID. They didn't want two teams sharing it and all the extra visiting teams that would be coming in. So they were denied that request. Then they shifted their attention to Baltimore because they wanted to use the Major League facility. And reports were that the Orioles and Blue Jays came to an agreement to share Camden Yards, but time was running so short for Toronto at that point that they didn't want to wait for the Maryland government to either grant the request or deny it. So they shifted to Buffalo. And on July 24th, the day that the Major League season was starting, the Blue Jays announced that they'd be coming to Buffalo the day that the Major League season was starting.
Wow.
Luckily, the Blue Jays were opening on the road. They were in Tampa, and they shifted around a couple days and made it so they'd have a little bit of time. But from the day they announced they were coming to Buffalo, they only had 18 days to get the facilities ready. So all the changes that I'm going to show you in this presentation all took place within an 18-day period. These are some pictures that I've taken over the years at Bison games. All these guys pictured here are up on the Blue Jays now. The Blue Jays have a really young core right now, led by, of course, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Bo Bichette, and Kevin Biggio. A huge chunk of Toronto's team right now has played in Buffalo just in the last 2 or 3 years because they're such a young team. So most of the guys on the team had played at Salem Field with the Bisons and saw it before, and then got to see it after its transformation with the Blue Jays. And this is an example of that. This is a quote from TJ Zoik, who pitched here with the Bisons, and he was at the Blue Jays alternate site for about half of last year. So he came up kind of during the season and was shocked at what he saw when he got here with the transformation of the field. He said, "It's completely new. It's ridiculous. I thought I had a pretty good bearing on this place last year, and then I got here and everything is so different. I'm still trying to figure it out where everything is. It's a maze back here, but they did a tremendous job turning this into a big league clubhouse and really making everything exceptional." And that was kind of the impression that all the players got or gave that had played here before. They were really surprised and excited by the transformation that they saw. Oops. The picture on the left here is from when the Bisons were playing at Salem Field. The picture on the right is when the Blue Jays were here. And I was looking at this picture earlier, and a couple things stand out. One is a lot of the advertising on the wall was changed over to all Canadian advertising all around the ballpark. You can see some of that here. And also, even the scoreboard, like the top of the scoreboard, you can see it used to say the home of the Bisons, and they changed that to Blue Jays. It kind of shows, to me, their attention to detail. They really changed, like, everything inside and outside the park was changed to Blue Jays. All the signage, all the advertising, changed to Canadian advertising. And you can kind of see that in this picture. As I go through these pictures that kind of show the changes in the field that they did in 18 days, a couple of things to keep in mind. One is that they were updating, at that time it was a 32-year-old stadium, so it kind of had some wear and tear that you'll see. They were updating it to current Major League specifications. And then they also had to provide for social distancing, which you might not have to do in a normal year, but because last year they had to make use of like every inch of the ballpark in order to space out players and provide social distancing for the pandemic. These are a few pictures of the outside of the stadium, and you can see that all the signage was changed to Blue Jays. The picture on the right is the Swan Street gate, which is kind of the main gate when the Bisons play there. You can see the Blue Jays signs, and then this was used as the media entrance when the Blue Jays were here. This is a picture of when the Bisons are here. This would be the entrance to go to what they call the pub at the park, which is kind of the main sit-down restaurant at the park. You come in through those glass doors, then you get on the elevator there, which when the Bisons are here, you can see the Bison uniforms and stuff on the elevator. You go up one floor and you're in the restaurant. When the Blue Jays were here, it was used as the players' entrance, because you can also take those elevators down a floor and go down to the clubhouses. And you can see, again, how they even change the inside and outside of the elevators to be Blue Jays. If you take those elevators down one level, you get to the field level. Again, the attention to detail here, I mean, all the signage has changed, new carpeting, even the roof, I think, has been changed here. The elevators all changed. So this would be the entrance to the home clubhouse with the Blue Jays here. Even the hallways, this is down on the field level. Again, the hallway to the home clubhouse, new carpeting, all the signage is all changed over to Blue Jays as well. This used to be a meeting room, and it was changed into the manager's office. I think one of the big reasons for that is probably for social distancing. The old manager's office for the Bisons was pretty small, so this gave them a little bit more room. And you can see Charlie Montoyo, the Blue Jays manager's conga drums are there. He likes to play those to relax. So this kind of gave him more room in his office to meet with his staff. The Bisons, what was the Bisons locker room was changed into a coach's locker room. And again, when it was a player's locker room, you would have 25 or 30 players crammed in there. Now that it's just for the coaches, you have some more social distancing in there. You can see how it's spread out a lot more. I think there's new carpeting everywhere, and of course it has all new lockers and carpeting. The visiting locker room, which is about the same size, was changed into a stretching area and the path to the home dugout. I'll get to that in just a second. What were the visiting and home batting cages, which would have been kind of behind where the clubhouses used to be, were turned into the Blue Jays locker room. So you can see how that's spaced out a lot more than what the Bison's locker room was that I just showed you. It's a lot bigger for social distancing purposes. Home weight room became a trainer's room. I love this picture because the picture on the left really shows kind of the wear and tear of 32 seasons of baseball and how they changed it on the right with the new carpeting and signage. You might notice that on the left side, it says the tunnel to the visiting dugout, and on the right side, it says the tunnel to the home dugout. Normally, the Bisons would have their home dugout on the first base side, but up at the Rogers Center where the Blue Jays play, they always have their dugout on the third base side. So they moved the home dugout from the first base side to the third base side so that it would be like at the Rogers Center. So the Blue Jays did use the third base dugout just like they do in Toronto. So again, this was formerly the visiting dugout, now is the home dugout. Another thing that you'll notice as I show pictures of the inside of the stadium here, the change in and kind of the color of the stadium. It used to be kind of green was kind of the theme throughout the stadium, and it kind of shifts to blue for the Blue Jays. You can see that green to blue shift here in these photos. What was the visiting dugout is now the home dugout. And then they put what they called an auxiliary dugout. They put that canopy behind the dugout so that players who weren't in the game could sit back in the stands and spread out more for social distancing purposes. This is the visiting bullpen, which would be the Blue Jays, the home bullpen. It's down the third base line. And you can see how they did that same thing here. They created an auxiliary bullpen with the canopy there so that the relievers could sit up in the stands and spread out more than they would. As was mentioned earlier, not a lot of foul ground there. The Blue Jays wanted to move because they have the bullpen mounds right on the field, which was common back in the 80s. But nowadays, most major league teams don't have their bullpen mounds on the field. That was one thing that they really wanted to do, was move those mounds. But because they had such a short period to make all these changes, they didn't have the time and really a good place to put them. So they kept the mounds and the bullpen mound on the field. And it actually came into play a couple of times during the season. I think it was the very first game here, Teoscar Hernandez, Blue Jays right fielder, kind of tripped over the mound a little bit, chasing a foul ball. And then later on in the year, Rowdy Tellez, their first baseman, was going back after a pop-up and he stepped on home plate and got injured, the dugout home plate, or bullpen home plate, I mean, and got injured. So it did come into play. That's one thing that they're changing for 2021 if the Blue Jays come back here. I'll get to that here in just a few slides. This is the concourse level. So this is where like fans entering the stadium pass through to get to their seat. They go out when there's a Bison game and to get snacks or buy food or go to the bathroom, whatever. Because there were no fans there last year allowed to be there, they were able to utilize all that space. Like I said, they used every inch of the ballpark. They turned the entire concourse into weight rooms and batting tunnels for the players. So, and obviously they wouldn't have been able to do that if fans would have been allowed to attend. So they made use of all the space to spread out. This is that first elevator that I showed you at the beginning that would take you to the pub at the park, the restaurant. That was changed into the Blue Jays team kitchen. This huge structure was just beyond the right field fence. There's a parking lot that like players and front office and people use to park for the games. And they built this large white tent structure out there to serve as the facilities for the visiting team, their clubhouse and some other things that I'll show you here. This is just kind of shows where that big white tent is located beyond the right field wall. And you would see teams like, you know, after every game filing out through the right field wall in order to go to the clubhouse. This is the New York Mets walking out to the visitors clubhouse. This is the going into that structure in the hallway when you first go in. The visiting locker room inside the white tent in the manager's office. One of the ways they were able to create this so quickly was because last year, if you remember Major League Baseball, I think they're going to do it this year too. They were going to play a game in Iowa at the Field of Dreams site. And this structure was actually designed for that game in Iowa. And so I think they might have used some of the materials from that as well, but it was definitely the design that they were going to use in Iowa for the Field of Dreams game. The visiting washrooms and team gym that were out there. They also had to upgrade all the lights in the stadium because they met minor league specifications, but they weren't bright enough for major league specifications. They brought in 2 portable light towers, one in left field and one in right field, in order to make it brighter. And both of those light structures came from Iowa, from the Field of Dreams site. This is just kind of a shot of the an aerial view. They also resodded in that 18-day period. They resodded the entire infield and went about 20 feet out into the outfield too with the new sod. There's a picture that I took. I'm out in right field here on a parking ramp out in right field looking down the first base line, and this just kind of gives you a good view of the auxiliary bullpen and auxiliary dugout on the first base side, which would be the visitor's side. And that is the Blue Jays side, the home side on the third base line. This is during a game where the Blue Jays are using that auxiliary dugout. And then I zoomed in on the player there actually is a former Astro, just by coincidence. It's Derek Fisher. And you can see the reason I did that was to just kind of show the seat covers that they were using in order to keep players from sitting next to one another and keep them more socially distanced in that auxiliary dugout. This is on the first base side, so this is the visitors' auxiliary dugout. And on the left-hand side are the Baltimore Orioles. I like the picture on the right-hand side. It's Pete Alonso of the Mets. He's actually sitting just outside of that auxiliary dugout, but I just thought it was cool because he's kind of sitting there among the cardboard fans in the picture, so it's kind of neat. That's the Blue Jays making use of that auxiliary bullpen out in left field. And they, of course, as many teams did last year, they brought in the cardboard fans and sat them behind home plate and up the lines a little ways. Out in right field, the Bisons have, the picture on the right is what I'm talking about right now, and you can see the Canadian advertising there as well. And the Bisons have what is usually called the Bully Hill Party Deck. You can go out there and they have some tables out there that you can sit at, and there's like a bar in the back. But they converted that into the Westjet flight deck, which is what it's called at the Rogers Center in a similar kind of thing. They have one in center field there, the Westjet flight deck, where you can get drinks and stand and watch a game. And those are cardboard fans there, of course, but it made it look more like the Rogers Center in Toronto. They also had the Blue Jays honored numbers on the left here. Where those are located, that would normally be the press box when the Bisons are here. But because of the pandemic, they didn't want the media sitting inside there, scrunched together. So the media was actually down on the first deck, sitting in the open air, undercover, but out in the open. The numbers for number 12 is Roberto Alomar, 32 is Roy Halladay, 42 is, of course, Jackie Robinson. And then they had the number 1 on the outfield wall for Tony Fernandez, who passed away last year, to honor him. A common sight during the games that you would never see at a normal game were players just kind of walking through the stands. Because there were no fans and because they were making use of so much of the ballpark, the quickest way for the players to get from the dugout during a game back to like the batting cages and stuff was to just cut through the stands and through the cardboard fans. So you would, a lot of times you'd see whoever the designated hitter was that day, cutting through the stands to go take batting practice in the tunnel between at bat. That's Pete Alonso on the left and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. on the right. Another cool tradition that the Bisons have that they always do is when a player hits a home run over that picture I just showed you, the Westjet flight deck, if it goes over that and lands in the parking lot, they'll paint a white circle and put the player's name and the date that he hit the home run. Rowdy Tellez, who's a Blue Jays first baseman and DH now, hit a home run when he was with the Bisons in 2019 out there. And then he was the first major league player to hit one out there as well. So the Bisons put a blue ball out there this time in order to distinguish it from the other white balls to show that it's a major league home run. And it was a 429-foot home run. and he became just the third player to hit multiple balls out there. He joined Russell Branyan and Brad Snyder, who of course did it in minor league games. A lot of Salem Field major league firsts. All of them happened on August 11th, which was the first game here against Miami, except for the first triple happened a couple weeks later. But Hyunjin Ryu, the Blue Jays ace, started that game. The first batter was Jonathan VR. The first hit was by Travis Shaw, who's on the Brewers now, but was on the Blue Jays at the time. And Travis Shaw also won the game with a bases loaded single in the 10th inning. The pictures there are of Ryu and Shaw. First home run was Bo Bichette. First Blue Jays home run, I should say. Brian Anderson had one for Miami before that. And it was really cool just to see all these teams come back here. A lot of them had played here before, but hadn't played here in a long time. The only time that the Blue Jays had played here before 2020 was an exhibition game against Cleveland back in 1987 at War Memorial Stadium, which fans around here affectionately call the Rock Pile. That's where The Natural was filmed. The Red Sox hadn't been here since 1917, an exhibition game against the Bisons. The Phillies, their last official game here was back when the Bisons were in the National League back in 1885. I have an asterisk by that one, though, because the Bisons were actually a Phillies affiliate in the late 50s, early 60s. So I have a feeling they may have played an exhibition game here back then because that was a popular thing to do at the time. But their last official game was 1885. Yankees hadn't played here since an exhibition game against the International League All-Stars in 1963. The Mets played here a couple times in the mid-60s because the Bisons were their affiliate. They played a couple exhibition games here. And the Orioles, Rays, and Marlins had, of course, never played here. And just the stars that came through. A couple of the best pitchers in baseball right now pitched at Salem Field last year. Garrett Cole pitched here for the Yankees. And then the picture here in the middle, Jacob deGrom pitched here. It was September 11th. That's why he has the NYPD hat on. You know, watching the Yankees take batting practice here, Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton. Just kind of a really cool thing to see here in a minor league city. This is a picture of Bryce Harper up at the plate for the Phillies. And it also gives you a good look at the stadium. You know, fans weren't allowed to attend last year, but for local fans, it was really special because they could still watch on TV. All the Yankees and Mets games are on TV here. And they could watch the other games on like MLB Extra Innings and stuff. So it was really cool to see that happening right in downtown Buffalo. This is a quote from Kevin Biggio, who of course is Craig Biggio's son. And he played here as a minor leaguer too with the Bisons. So he understood the transformation that the field had gone through, as most of the players did. And it was really universally praised by the Blue Jay players. Coming in, some of them, they were not quite sure coming back to a minor league ballpark, you know, what they were getting into. But once they saw what had been done and the improvements that were done, they were really complimentary. These pictures are all from Salem Field that I took, just kind of signs of the times from 2020. The one in the upper left is Jonathan VR and Vlad Guerrero just wearing the masks on the field. The Black Lives Matter t-shirts, you'd see a lot of players wearing those during batting practice. There was a sign out on the right center field wall. The photo on the right with the player kneeling is Giancarlo Stanton during the anthem, which you would occasionally see a player doing. Brett Gardner standing next to him, but he's kneeling during the anthem. So these pictures just kind of to me, really, say 2020 to me with all the symbolism that goes with it. But home field advantage, the Blue Jays didn't know how the field would play for them coming in to play at a minor league park with no fans. And it really worked out for them. They ended up going 17-9 at Salem Field, which was the best winning percentage for any team at home last season. They had 4 walk-off wins. The big picture there is Randall Grichuk after hitting a walk-off home run against the Orioles. In the bottom right, you can see Teoscar Hernandez giving a high five after he had a walk-off hit as well. So they really had a lot of success here, but no win for them was as big as on September 24th, right at Salem Field. They beat the New York Yankees 4-1 to clinch a playoff berth. And of all the surreal things that happened all summer, I think that might have been the most surreal for me to watch. The Blue Jays beating the Yankees, right in downtown Buffalo to clinch a playoff berth, and then having them celebrate right on the field was really something to see. This picture is just kind of a funny one. There really weren't any signs of the Bisons around the ballpark. Everything was changed over to Blue Jays. There weren't any Bison logos or anything. But one of the Bison's offices that overlooks the field, they had these characters looking out. And these are the characters that participate in our wings, cheese, and carrot race, or the WCC race, they call it, every Bison game. If you're familiar with the sausage race in Milwaukee, or the pierogi race in Pittsburgh, or the president's race in Washington, what else would we race here in Buffalo but chicken wings and the fixings that go with it? So these guys usually race at the Bison game. And they just had them, there wasn't anybody in the costumes here. They just had them kind of stood up in front of the window holding up a Bison sign. So it's kind of funny because that was the only trace of Bisons in the stadium. And I talked about all the firsts. This was the final pitch thrown in the 2020 season. The pitcher, ironically, is a former Bison, Cesar Valdez for the Baltimore Orioles. And he's delivering to Chance Sisco at the plate. Or I'm sorry, Joe Panic at the plate for the Blue Jays, and Chance Sisco as the catcher. And this was the final pitch of the season. However, there's a pretty good chance that the Blue Jays might be returning here in 2021. Officially right now, the Blue Jays are playing in Dunedin, their spring training site in Florida. And they've announced that they're going to play there until at least May 24th. They've kind of suggested, not officially, but kind of said that they might stay there until into June. But when the weather heats up in Florida in June and July, and I guess they get frequent thunderstorms in Florida during those months, they're looking to come north at that time. And ideally they'd like to go back to Toronto then, but if the border is not open, they probably will not be allowed to. Right now, on the province of Ontario, where Toronto plays, is in a lockdown for 5 more weeks. So they're having a really bad time up there with the pandemic right now. So it's looking kind of likely right now that they might be coming back to Buffalo. The picture on the left here, you can see how they're trying to make more permanent changes to the stadium than they made last year. The Blue Jays president and CEO, Mark Shapiro, said that they would like to make lasting and permanent solutions this year at the AAA, that AAA players will be able to benefit from in the future. And I talked about earlier about the bullpens on the field and how they would like to move them off the field. In the lower part of this big picture here, you can see how they're building 2 bullpen mounds out there, and they're going to make like a tiered bullpen out there for the visitors and the home team. They're also doing construction back in the clubhouses. They're making them both permanently bigger. They're more than doubling the size of the home clubhouse from what it was when the Bisons were there. They're building nutrition rooms, training rooms. They're building new batting cages just to the left of these bullpen mounds here that you see. So they're making a lot of permanent changes to the ballpark in case the Blue Jays come here this year, which is kind of looking likely, and for the Bisons in the future. The minor league season actually starts, it was postponed once. It's supposed to start in May now, May 4th. And the Bisons have temporarily moved to Trenton, New Jersey, which is about a 6.5-hour drive from here. Trenton lost their AA team last year when the minor leagues contracted. So the Bisons are going there so that they can continue to do all this construction on Salem Field. And, you know, really it's in preparation for if the Blue Jays come back here, but it'll also benefit the Bisons. And it seems the other thing is, like, they used the concourses last year, and if Blue Jays come back here this year, fans will be allowed to attend. Right now, we could have 20% capacity in New York. So they needed to move all those batting cages and all that kind of stuff out of there so that they can have fans again. So when I originally made this PowerPoint, I had a question mark after that to be continued. But I think, you know, probably now it's looking like it will be continued this year because the Blue Jays, looks like they might be back here. This picture here I took after the last game in 2020 when they shut off the lights and the field was dark and you could see like the back of the fans. I thought it was just a cool picture to symbolize the end. But it certainly looks like at this point that we could have a continuation in 2021. Probably sometime in June, maybe mid or late June. It's very possible that they could be coming back here. And that concludes my presentation.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very well done. Very interesting.
Thank you.
Any questions?
That was
Questions?
pretty interesting.
Question.
That was pretty interesting what you said, Brian, about the bullpen mounds being in play, because I covered Buck Showalter here with the Texas Rangers, and he used to rail against that. Oakland in the Rangers division, their bullpens are outside too in foul territory, and so were the San Francisco Giants, and he hated that. Every time there was a foul ball that went into the bullpen and one of his players got in danger, he would, after the game, he would just sit there and rail about the mounds being in foul territory.
Yep. Yeah, so fortunately they're able to move them this year more permanently out of there so that, like I said, last year when they were talking about it at the beginning of the year, I was like, oh, that's not going to have any effect on the game. Like the Bisons use it all the time. And then it actually did come into play a couple of times. So, you know, fortunately they're able to move them now.
Are all these expenses borne by the Toronto Ball Club, or is Buffalo involved with this at all, the city?
That's a great question. The ballpark is actually owned by the city of Buffalo. All of the changes that were made last year in that short period were paid for by the Blue Jays. This year, I think it might, I don't know this for a fact, but I think it might be a little bit different. I think some of the changes that they're making were kind of mandated by the new minor league agreement with Major League Baseball, where they have to have like bigger workout rooms and nutritional rooms and all these kinds of things. So I think this year it's kind of a partnership between the Blue Jays and the Bisons and probably the city of Buffalo to some extent as well. So this last year it was all the Blue Jays expense, but this year I think it's split up a little bit more.
Do you think Buffalo could support on a regular basis a Major League Baseball club?
You know, if you asked me that question in the late 80s, I would have said absolutely. At this point, though, because of the salaries and stuff, how high they've gotten, I think that I don't think we could at this point. I don't think we could turn out big enough crowds really to support a major league team all the time. we're much smaller than, like Pittsburgh or Cleveland or Detroit. And those cities kind of struggle at times. So I think it would be really tough for Buffalo to do that now.
Well, that's a pity. Thank you.
Yep.
I was impressed with how much research you did with the Hall of Famers in the early games. And then I saw the Negro Leagues played in 1948, which was the early days that they were calling up the players. So they were the talent was undiluted then. So have you been able to see if any of the players in that final game made it to the majors?
I know there were a few players on the Cleveland Buckeyes that made it. Sam Jethro was one. One interesting fact that I didn't have in there, but in the early 50s, mid 50s kind of, after the major leagues had been integrated a little bit more, the Indianapolis Clowns were actually based in Buffalo for a little while. They still went by the name the Indianapolis Clowns because they were kind of like a Harlem Globetrotters type operation where the name maybe didn't exactly represent where they were from, but they had the brand, the Indianapolis Clowns, and they were based at Offerman Stadium in Buffalo. And Hank Aaron actually played in Buffalo and signed with the Boston Braves after a doubleheader in Buffalo. So there's a lot of Negro League history in Buffalo. We just never actually had a team for a real sustained period during that 1920 to 1948 period. But yeah, Sam Jethro is I'm not sure if he actually played in that last game, but he played for the Cleveland Buckeyes, who played here a lot.
Did you see Luke Easter play?
I never did, but my dad did. Yeah, he's a legend here. He's one of 3 Bisons to have their number retired here, along with Jeff Mantle and Ollie Carnegie. So Easter is definitely a legend in the city.
Great.
Yeah, after seeing it snow in Detroit opening day this year, what's the weather like in Buffalo in early April?
Where the stadium is, the stadium's right down by Lake Erie. And it actually faces out towards Lake Erie. So the April weather, it is freezing down there usually in April and May, which is one of the reasons why the Blue Jays stayed in Dunedin to start the year down in Florida. It can be some really cold days and nights down there at the ballpark. Usually in late May and stuff, it starts warming up down there, but you can get a really cold wind off the lake in April, that's for sure.
Right. Okay.
Hey, I had a question for you, Brian.
Yep.
How much, as far as fan engagement with the Blue Jays and Buffalo and stuff like that, I know you're a Blue Jays fan.
Okay.
How big of a fan base does the club actually have in Buffalo? And are you hoping to be able to actually have fans attend a game there? They're pretty soon.
Yeah, I would, if you ask me who most people support around here, it's probably the Yankees. We're far from New York City. I don't know, it's probably like a 7-hour drive or something to New York City. But I would say that most people in the area support the Yankees. There are quite a few Blue Jays fans. And the stadium is like, just a mile or 2 from the Peace Bridge to cross over into Canada. So when the Bisons are playing there, there's tons of Canadian fans that cross over to watch, especially with like Guerrero and Bichette and Biggio all playing in the last few years. There's lots of Canadian fans here, and there are Blue Jays fans in Western New York as well. But I think most people are probably Yankees fans. It's really kind of split up. There's Mets fans. We're close to Cleveland and Pittsburgh. They're both about 3 hours away, so there's quite a few Cleveland and Pittsburgh fans too. But for the most part, I would say Yankee fans. But if right now New York State says you can have 20% of the stadium filled with fans, and if they ever are able to put those tickets on sale, if the Blue Jays come here, they'll sell out like that, no matter who they're playing. Especially limit on the fans.
Some things never change then. I was there in 79 and 80, and you're right. They were Yankee fans. Now, of course, the Blue Jays were very new in 79. They only come in baseball in 77. But an hour and a half or thereabouts drive, you would think 40 years later would have picked up a few more Blue Jay fans.
I know, it's crazy how close it is, which makes it really convenient for calling up players and sending down players for them to come here to Buffalo. And there are, Blue Jays fans in Buffalo. It's just, I would say the majority are Yankee fans.
State loyalty.
Yeah, exactly. And it's weird because they're pretty far away from here, It's a good drive to get to New York from here.
Okay, Brian, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And you're welcome to come back to any of our meetings. I know you're a good, long-time SABR member, and we have fun. So we have a pretty good group that asks lots of good questions. We're going to take a slight break for a couple of minutes, and Joe Thompson has a survey that he would like for you all to consider before we move on to our next speaker. So, Joe, what you got?
Okay, well, I was told by John to advertise my new Astros hat. This is on the Fanatics website. They're selling like hotcakes. It represents the celebrates the 86 club, but it's a brand new hat. So I would say get it while you can. So if you're a fan of the 86 club like I am,
Celebrates
get 'em
what
while they're
club?
hot.
What is it?
1986, the 86 club. It's got a picture of the dome on it. 1986 Astros. So, the great 80s.
Joe, I didn't hear you. Where do we find it?
On Fanatics. Actually, here, let me, I thought I had it. I don't want to take up too much time. Actually, if you look at it, it's right there. Those of you who can see it, it's right there. Almost gone. So, but anyway, it's a great hat. But anyway, let's. I was told to advertise that from John, so John, I got that out of the way. Okay, so we got kind of an interesting little poll this year. I'm just curious. Dave Parker has a new book out called Cobra, and that's been a talk of a lot of conversation right now. We have quite a few, a lot of baseball books coming out this year, and I'm just wondering, with COVID or anything like that, how many books y'all plan on reading this year, or how many you've already read, and how many games you plan on attending this year at the ballpark. So I've launched a poll, and I'm just kind of curious. One, how many baseball books have you read this year? I know it's only April, but I'm just wondering. And then how many games, Astros or otherwise, do you plan on attending this year? If you're like Fred, you're all over the United States. So, Fred should be more than 10 already. Right? But I went to my first game last Saturday. So
okay.
I'm just kind of curious. And I'll keep the poll up for another 30 seconds or so, and then I'll share the results.
Are you counting Skeeter's games?
Yeah, Astros or otherwise. That's why I put baseball games.
What new books do you know are coming out?
Well, there's the Cobra book. There's that new book. I think that one came out last year, Dalco, the new book about that. And there's quite a few other ones. Bud Selig's. I think maybe that one has been out for a while. And
Hey, Joe.
Plethora of new books that are coming out. Yes.
Hey, Joe.
Yeah.
Just real quick on the Cobra book. I don't know if there's any Charlie Palillo fans in the audience. I suspect a lot of us are, but he interviewed the Cobra. He interviewed.
Parker.
Yeah, thank you. Live on his show a week or two ago, and it would be in the I'm sure in the archives for his show. But it was a great interview. He had a few issues with Dave trying to answer some questions because some of you might know that he's had Parkinson's for the last 8 years.
Oh no.
He was So he was struggling. He kind of locked up a couple of times, but Palillo, being the pro he is, just worked with him on it. But it was a very interesting interview. And just real quickly, if you happen to listen to it, by the way, Palillo's a great a great fan of baseball, as we all know. He said that book is probably in the top 5 baseball books that he's ever read.
My goodness.
It was a high compliment coming from Charlie Polillo. And when he asked Parker, who did he sort of, during his time, who did he look up to or not look up to so much as who did he really think were the great players of the day, and who did he mention in an elite group with many and others, except our own Cesar Cedeno?
Oh,
Yeah.
Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Anyway, sorry for the interruption. I thought y'all liked to hear that.
Fine. Fine.
No. Let me share the results real fast. So far, somebody's read already more than 5. Plan on going to games more than 10. Okay. Just kind of curious with COVID opening everything back up, where people are on going to games and how many books. And while the other person is giving the presentation in the chat section, I'll give like a link to some new books that are coming out. So, all right, that's all, Bob.
Okay, thanks. For your information, I was contacted today by a longtime SABR member, Ken Lilly, who lives in the Woodlands. He's trying to reduce the number of baseball books he has in his library. And he sent me a list, which I got about 6 o'clock, of probably 50 or 60 books that he would like to give away to those who are interested. And he's got a couple that'll sell for $5 or something. But anyway, I'll try to get that list out to you this week so you can see if there's some books on there that you have interest in. And then he has the contact information. He does live locally. And so that's available to you. And also for your information, Tom White's widow had a bunch of Sporting News baseball registers that she was offering, and she was able to dispose of those in a very positive way. Okay, moving right along, we're going to hear from T.R. Sullivan. T.R. Sullivan was a longtime beat writer for the Texas Rangers. He worked for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, and I guess he retired after 32 years covering baseball. He did speak to the group in San Marcos, I believe, in January, and we're delighted to have him here with us to kind of share some of his stories and memories. So, TR, you're up at bat.
So I was listening to the Buffalo, Brian do the Buffalo thing. It was interesting that they had Derek Fisher on there, who was a former Astro, and he was a number 2 pick by the Astros in, I think, 2014. And what's interesting, there's a lot of things interesting about that was the Rangers drafted him in the top 10 in 2011, didn't sign him. He was one of 3 future number 1 picks. They didn't sign in 2011. And so he ended up with the Astros. He was the 2nd pick by the Astros that year. The first pick was the pitcher Brady Aiken. I'm sure you guys all know the story by now, but the Astros didn't sign Brady Aiken. And so because of the injury thing, and so they end up getting the compensation pick the next year with the 2nd overall pick, and they got Alex Bregman. Well, that killed the Rangers because the Rangers wanted Alex Bregman. John Daniels and Alex Bregman are actually pretty good friends. John Daniels did a lot of studying and homework on Alex Bregman, but the Astros stole him away, and the Rangers ended up taking Dylan Tate, who was kind of a big bust for the Rangers. But it's kind of the reason I bring that up is it's kind of interesting to me, covering the Rangers for 32 years, how intertwined the Rangers and the Astros have been over the years, just beyond playing games against each other, and how their fates have gone back and forth. I'm sure you guys have heard some of these stories before. I've covered the Rangers for 32 years. Long story short, I went to the University of San Francisco. I grew up in the military. I had no idea that I would ever cover the Texas Rangers. When I was growing up, I was a Red Sox fan. I went to San Francisco as a Giant and A's fan. And it wasn't until I moved to Texas that I even really started paying attention to the Texas Rangers. But then when I retired, after 32 years covering them for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram and the MLB.com, I realized I'd covered the Rangers longer than anybody else, Randy Galloway, Jim Reeves. And then I suddenly realized that there was nobody in Houston that covered the Astros longer than I'd covered the Rangers. Not Harry Shattuck, not Neil Hofield, a lot of great writers down here, but nobody covered the Astros anywhere near as long as I had. And then I realized that I covered 120 games a year for about 32 years. And when I finally figured it out, it blew me away that I probably covered more games as a sports writer in the state of Texas than anybody in history, which is pretty amazing when you think of Jack Gallagher and Dan Jenkins and all the great sports writers that come through that come through there. So it kind of blew me away. But but like I said, I never thought I'd cover the Rangers. I probably would have liked to have covered the Giants or the Oakland Athletics coming out of college, which I guess almost happened covering the Athletics, because I guess you guys know all this history. But when I went to Texas, one of the great friends I had, and I was very fortunate to meet, was Tom Vandergriff, who, as you guys know, brought the Rangers to Arlington from Washington, D.C. And Tom used to tell me great stories and how he tried to get so many teams here. And as you guys know, Charlie Finley had the Kansas City Athletics like in the early 60s. He had bought the team. Kansas City wanted to move out of there, did not want to sign a long-term extension. And in 1963, he signed a lease with the Louisville Fairgrounds in Louisville, Kentucky. But he forgot to tell the American League, and Joe Cronin in the American League just blew up at Finley, got really mad at him, and told him, you either sign with Kansas City or we're going to throw you out of baseball. So long story short, Finley, after making that stupid move, signed a 4-year deal with the Royals in January '64, but was given permission to investigate Dallas-Fort Worth, Seattle, Oakland, and several other places, probably even Buffalo. But anyway, he ended up going to Oakland because they had the stadium there built. The Oakland Coliseum had already been built for football. Dallas-Fort Worth had the old Turnpike Stadium, and Seattle had that Sixth Stadium up there, so they didn't get the ball field. And Joe Cronin desperately wanted a team in the Bay Area on the West Coast, because he was from San Francisco, and the National League had the Dodgers and the Giants. So as hard as the Vandergriff tried, Finley ended up going to Oakland. Well, when he went to Oakland in '68, Kansas City blew up. They were all upset. They got very upset, and they threatened to Stuart Simonton, the senator from Missouri, threatened to strip baseball of their antitrust exemption, which is something Ted Cruz is threatening to now. Anybody who's ever wanted to get anything out of Major League Baseball, any politician, the first thing they did was threaten to strip them of their antitrust exemption. Well, baseball was like really scared of that, so they told Kansas City they would get an expansion team, and they would get it in 1971. Well, Simonton said that's not good enough, because they were trying to build a new stadium, which ended up being Kauffman Stadium, Royal Stadium. So he said, no, we want this team by 1969. So Major League Baseball said, okay. I mean, you got to remember, if you threaten the antitrust exemption, leagues would move like Pete Rozelle, when the Russell Long in Louisiana threatened NFL. That's how Pete Rozelle said, okay, you can get the Saints. That's how the Saints moved in there, just by threatening the antitrust exemption. So they expanded in 1969, which to me was one of the most fascinating expansions. It's the only time they expanded 4 teams, and Buffalo was a part of that, as I'm sure Brian can tell you. But as you guys all know, the National League wanted to move to Dallas-Fort Worth. They wanted to expand into Dallas-Fort Worth, and that was the prime location. And of course, Roy Hoffines would not let him do that. He wanted all of Texas to himself. He saw how Oakland had gone into San Francisco and messed with the Giants, and he didn't want that to happen to Texas. So the National League had voted overwhelmingly to expand to Dallas-Fort Worth. Hoffine said no, they wouldn't let him, and so they ended up going to San Diego. They were going to go to Buffalo. Buffalo was in line to get a team too, but Montreal ended up getting the team instead of Buffalo, which is funny because Montreal did not have a stadium. Montreal had a football stadium, but the Alouettes wouldn't let them play in the football stadium. And Jerry Park was not a stadium. Jerry Park was just a ball field, a youth ball field out in the middle of a city park. And they threw that thing up. We talk about what they did in Buffalo in Brian's great presentation. They threw up Jerry Park in less than a year, and it ended up being their home for like 7 years. So that whole 1969 expansion thing ended up being just wild and crazy. Another funny story about that, I don't know if you guys heard about this, but I found this out. So anyway, Kansas City, every team had to protect 15 players in the expansion draft, which was far less than they had when the first draft back in when the Astros, I think they were allowed to protect 25 or something like that. So now they're only going to protect 15. Well, the New York Yankees didn't want to protect Mickey Mantle. Mickey Mantle played in 1968. He was old, he was brittle, his knees were bad, and everybody thought Mantle was going to retire. But Mantle had not announced he was going to retire going into the offseason. So the Yankees did not want to protect Mickey Mantle. So all of a sudden, word got out that the Kansas City Royals were going to draft Mickey Mantle. Their manager Charlie Metro said this would be a great idea. First of all, if he could play, he can play. They'll draw fans. But as you guys know, Mickey Mantle was from northeastern Oklahoma and Commerce, Oklahoma, and he had played in Kansas City in the minor leagues, so he's obviously a big name there. And the Royals figured, all right, if he doesn't play, he could be a coach, he could be an instructor, he could be broadcaster, ambassador, everything like that. So they were making noises about drafting Mickey Mantle in the 1969 expansion draft. Well, the Yankees said, no, you can't draft Mickey Mantle. He's got to retire as a Yankee, blah, blah, blah. We're not going to protect him, but you can't draft him. So finally, Joe Cronin says, look, don't draft this guy, okay? Don't draft this guy. So the Royals said, okay, fine. Ewing Kauffman was a new owner, and he didn't want to buck Joe Cronin. He just got into the game, and he wasn't going to, try to upset the commissioner or the other teams until the Yankees also protected two players who had been in the military and did not have to be on the protected list. Bobby Mercer, who, as you all know, was a great player, and another guy named Jerry Kenney, who was a third baseman. He ended up playing a little bit in the major leagues, but at the time he was a big prospect. So anyway, the Royals found out that not only were the Yankees going to draft or didn't have to protect Mickey Mantle, they didn't have to protect Bobby Mercer or Jerry Kenney too, and that they blew up over that. And they got really mad, and they were threatening to draft Mickey Mantle in 1969. And but anyway, Cronin finally said, "No, don't do it." And Kauffman said, "Okay, we won't do it." So anyway, that's the story there. And then, of course, in 1972, the Rangers moved to Arlington. Vandergrift finally got the team when everything fell apart in Washington. Really kind of for the first 17 years, they kind of, they never played each other. They weren't in the exhibition games except for in Florida during spring training. And really, they kind of just were kind of separated from each other until, of course, in 1989, when the Rangers stole Nolan Ryan away from the Astros. The Astros tried to cut Nolan Ryan's salary. Nolan got mad and he went into the free agent market. Giants, Angels, Rangers all competed for Nolan, and the Rangers got him. And so Nolan joined the Rangers in 1989, the same year, my first year covering the beat, or I was the backup writer back then. My first year covering the Rangers behind Tony DeMarco, and we had Nolan Ryan, and I realized quickly that this was going to be an experience. Nolan Ryan's second start, he was in Milwaukee, and he took a no-hitter into the 8th inning, and I got a call between the 7th and 8th inning from the office, and they said, TR, you got to call Ruth Ryan. I go, what? You got to call Ruth Ryan and get her reaction to Nolan's no-hitter, if he throws a no-hitter. And fortunately for me, not for everybody else, but for me, Terry Francona broke up the no-hitter. So I said, okay, I guess you don't want it. And they said, no, you got to call her. You got to call her. Still call her. I'm going, oh my God. I remember the newspapers. I can't remember if it was the Star Telegram, the Morning News, but in their business section, they ran this huge thing from the state of Texas, like thousands of names of people who were owed money from the state of Texas. They put this in the paper on a Sunday or something like this, kind of one of those notices. So I get a call from the office, and they said, "Hey, do you see that Nolan Ryan's on that list?" I go, "No, I didn't look at the list. Sorry." But anyway, yeah, Nolan Ryan's owed $500. I said, "Okay, great. You got to call Nolan and see what that's all about." I said, "What, you want me to call?" "Yeah, go call Nolan Ryan and see what that's $500." I said, "No, thank you. No." So anyway, but we did get to see Nolan Ryan for 5 years. Got to see him throw 2 no-hitters, his 5,000th strikeout. got to see him throw win his 300th game. That was in Milwaukee. One night game in Milwaukee. Toby Hare was the coach there. He had his 5-year-old son. I can't remember his name. His 5-year-old son was on the team. He was a bat boy. He was watching the game from the clubhouse. Nolan Ryan was going back and forth from the clubhouse. Instead of being on the dugout when the Rangers were bad, he'd go back into the clubhouse and do his thing. So he goes up to the clubhouse, and Toby Hare's little kid says, "Hey, Nolan, you going back on the bench?" And Nolan says, "Yeah, I'm going back." He says, "When you come back up, can you bring my glove? I left it on the bench." So I got to watch Nolan Ryan pitch. I got to see him the night he and Robin Ventura got into it. That's something I'll never forget, because Nolan Ryan was going on the disabled list 2 or 3 times every year, getting hurt. One time he was on the disabled list. He went skiing down in Houston somewhere, and he stepped on a ski and cut his foot and had to go to the emergency room. That didn't sit well. But anyway, so Nolan ended up being a big thing for the Rangers. And so anyway, as far as the Rangers and the Astros, that really kind of picked up when George Bush bought the team. As y'all know, the Bushes are from Houston, and George Bush was a 45 Colt 45 fan growing up. Turk Farrell, he always told me Turk Farrell was one of his favorite players. So the Rangers in '92, the Rangers had their first exhibition game against the Astros in Texas. They even had a leather boot trophy for it. And this was the year that Bobby Valentine was on the hot seat. Everybody thought he was in danger of losing his job, which he ended up doing later that year. But in April, they did beat the Astros, and he did got a big boot trophy that he put on his desk in Arlington, and he pretty much said, "Hey, everybody thought I was going to get the boot this year. Well, here it is." So then this is a favorite story of mine. In '94, the Rangers play the Astros in middle of spring. They go back to Houston and they play the Astros in Houston at the Dome, and George Bush is there, and he's the governor of Texas. Or no, he's running for governor of Texas. Excuse me. And Ann Richards is the governor. Well, George is a Republican, Ann is a Democrat. You know, the old silver spoon in the mouth and how those two were at each other's throats during that election. So I go down on the field before the game, and President Bush is standing there with Tom Schieffer. And I always liked talking to President Bush. He was very friendly to me when he was the owner. So I go out to him and said, "You're getting ready to open up the new ballpark. They're getting ready to open up the ballpark in Arlington in 3 weeks. It's going to be a huge deal." And I said, "Are you, this is a publicly funded stadium. Are you going to invite the governor of Texas to your new publicly funded ballpark?" And Bush said to me, "Yes, we'll be glad. We are going to invite her, and we'll be glad to have her." And I said, "What happens if she shows up?" And he says, "Then she'll be treated with honor. She'll sit in a place of honor, and we'll treat her with great respect." So I was looking at a little note. I was going to put a little note on the Rangers page, and I called my office about it. They got all excited about it, and then they called the governor's office, and she responded to it. And next thing you know, my story went front page on every paper in Texas that day. It just kind of blew me away. So anyway. Bush ended up getting elected. So anyway, the Rangers and the Astros, obviously American League, National League, when they expanded to Tampa Bay and Arizona in '97, '98, they're ready to just put one team in. I can't remember if they could put them both in how they were going to line it. But anyway, the Rangers blocked it. The Rangers wanted to go to the National League. The Rangers were all fired up about going to the National League, and they wouldn't approve any realignment. They didn't include the Rangers going to the National League because they wanted to play the Astros and be in the same division as the Astros and finally get that together. Well, Bud Selig wanted realignment, but the main thing Bud Selig wanted was he wanted Milwaukee to go into the National League because he had grown up on the Braves. He loved the National League, and he wanted the Brewers in the National League. So they started off with the compromise that they would go to 15 teams. They would have interleague play, or they would start interleague. No, it wasn't 15 teams. It was 16 and 14, but they would have interleague play. They would start out with interleague play. And Selig promised that there would be major realignment. There would be massive realignment. that would change the face of baseball. Well, they couldn't do it because nobody wanted to go in the American League. Nobody wanted to be in the American League. You guys know that the Astros didn't want to go to the American League. Nobody wanted to go to the American League. So Selig was in a deep quandary about this. Well, they had interleague play. The Rangers and the Astros started playing in interleague play. It was a big hit. So Tom Hicks finally said, we'll stay in the American League. We'll stay out in the American League West, as long as you promise us, that we'll play the Astros every year in interleague play. And that's when they started off with the silver boot thing that Drayton McLean loved. Drayton McLean was the only guy who loved the silver boot. Nobody else cared about it. But the Rangers won the first one in 2001. The Rangers were really bad. Jerry Nairn was the interim manager, and they won the silver boot. And after the game, everybody's filing out of the ballpark, and there's nobody in the stands, and they want to have a ceremony. So poor Jerry Nairn had to run out on the field and get the silver boot from somebody and run back in. So anyway, they've been playing the silver boot every year since, and now they're in the same division. But I mean, anyway, Nolan Ryan obviously was one of the first big names for the Astros, who ended up playing up with the Rangers. We've had a few others. Obviously, Ken Caminiti signed with the Rangers. That didn't go well. They had just signed Alex Rodriguez. They were trying to shotgun a team together, and Ken Caminiti was on his last legs. They signed Ken Caminiti. He didn't last a whole year for them, so that wasn't good. Another guy that they signed, which was kind of interesting, was Roy Oswalt, who was a great pitcher. Oh, another thing about that, let me go back to 2001. This is kind of interesting. The heyday, back in the late 90s, the Astros had great teams with Larry Dierker and Jerry Huntsinger, Bagwell, Biggio, and the Rangers had great teams with Juan Gonzalez, Pudge Rodriguez, and that looked like to me when they were going to have a all Texas World Series. There was a chance of them having a Texas World Series. I thought it would happen, but the Rangers could never get past the Yankees, and we all know what happened with the Astros. That team, when they had Randy Johnson, when they traded for Randy Johnson, I was certain that team in '98, that team was the best team, and I think that was probably the best team ever, best Astros team ever, but they ended up losing. But the funny thing was with the Rangers is that the Rangers won division titles in '96, '98, and '99 with Doug Melvin as their general manager, Johnny Oates as their manager, and Tom Hicks bought the team in '98, and he was all fired up to take over. And one of the things that happened was the Rangers fell off in 2000 and 2001. They weren't very good, and they fired Doug Melvin. And this is an interesting story. One of the reasons why Doug Melvin was fired as Rangers general manager by Tom Hicks was the Rangers had no young pitching. They had absolutely no young pitching. And Hicks was like jealous of the Oakland A's, who had Mark Mulder, Tim Hudson, and Barry Zito. But he was also jealous of the Astros because the Astros had, in 2001, this was Melvin's last year with Texas, they had Roy Oswalt, who everybody knew was going to be pretty good. And they all knew they had Wade Miller, who had a decent career, had 3 or 4 really good years with the Astros, ended up being a pretty good pitcher. And then they had this guy, Carlos Hernandez. Carlos Hernandez came up for the Astros in 2001 in August. They had like 3 great games for him. Had allowed like 2 runs in 17 innings, allowed 11 hits, struck out 17. And then I guess he hurt his shoulder running the bases. But anyway, Hicks loved Miller, Wade Miller, Oswalt, and Hernandez. So one of the reasons why Doug Melvin got fired was because he couldn't keep up with either the Astros or the A's young pitching. So anyway, the Rangers ended up going after Hicks sold the team. As you well know, Jim Crane and the guy Mark Cuban wanted to buy the team, and they lost out to Ray Davis and Bob Simpson, that great auction back in 2010. So I guess you all know that Crane almost bought this team. So anyway, the Rangers went to the World Series in 2010 and 2011. So then we go into 2012, and the Rangers are loaded with best team the Rangers had coming out of spring training. This team was loaded. They had a great lineup. They had 8 All-Stars on this team. Their rotation was Matt Harrison, Colby Lewis, Derek Holland, Neftali Feliz, and Yu Darvish. So I mean, they were loaded, and then Neftali Feliz ended up blowing out his elbow, needing Tommy John, and Colby Lewis got hurt. He had a forearm issue. So the Rangers were in desperate need of pitching. So Roy Oswalt had been a free agent and hadn't signed, had not gotten the offer he wanted, and was still looking to pitch. So the Rangers signed him, desperate for pitching. They signed him in May, and poor Roy just did not pitch well in Texas. He made like 7 starts and had like a 6 ERA going into July, and the Rangers were getting tired of him, and they still needed pitching. So because Oswalt didn't pitch well, they made a very bad trade, one of the worst trades in Rangers history. They decided that Ryan Dempster was the guy they needed. Ryan Dempster was the guy pitching for the Chicago Cubs. So they traded Kyle Hendricks and another infielder, Christian Villanueva, to the Cubs for Ryan Dempster. And obviously Hendricks has become one of the best pitchers in the National League, and the Rangers would still have him if Oswalt had pitched better for the Rangers. They wouldn't have lost Kyle Hendricks. So anyway, obviously the Astros have done very well under their new administration. I know they've gone through some tough times down there. I know, but the Rangers, on the other hand, we're going through some tough times through here too. 4 losing seasons in a row. Not sure this year that streak's going to stop. I think they're hoping to do kind of what the Astros are going to do, which is going to be very tough to do. The Astros did a great job. Great team. I know the Astros have had a lot of thrills, and they've won the World Series. So that's where we're at right now with the Rangers. They got what the Rangers do have down here. They have some excellent young pitching. This is probably the best young pitching in the system and on the team that they've had in a long time. And what they need to do is give it a few years. They've had a lot of injuries. They've had guys have to sit out because of the pandemic. But you look at a guy like Kyle Cody is one of them, Hans Krause, Cole Winn, a lot of good young pitchers on this team. And Rangers are really excited about that. If they can keep this pitching together for a few years and get them mature, get them the innings they need, keep them healthy, I think they could get this thing back on top. I'll be watching from the sideline. You guys were. It's kind of funny. I'll end with this. I know it's getting late. You guys were asking what books you've read or what baseball books you're going to read. It's kind of funny. I've been covering the Rangers for 32 years. If I'd covered the New York Yankees for 32 years, I guarantee you there'd be publishing houses in Madison Avenue begging me to write my memoirs. But having covered the Rangers and the Astros, I don't know if anybody's ever really written that many books on the history of the Rangers, the Astros. So I don't know what I'm going to do, but anyway, I'll be watching. I'll keep on watching and keep talking baseball. I appreciate you let me come on tonight and talk a little bit about the history of my history with covering the Rangers and history of baseball. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer. Otherwise, like I said, it was awesome for you guys to let me come by.
I got one, Dean, and you are obviously the dean of baseball writers in the state of Texas, since you've been around here longer than anybody else. The years that I was up there with the Rangers, 86 through 94, one of the things obvious was the heat. Now the Rangers have the new ballpark with the roof. What effect is that going to have, do you think, long term with the developing of this club and not having that sweltering heat summer?
Yeah, Greg, that's a great question, and it's kind of funny. They've just not been able to attract many free agent pitchers here, and I think that's going to be the big difference. Obviously, they got Nolan Ryan, but he was from Texas. It's kind of I think they'll be able to attract more pitching. This will be a destination place for pitchers. I don't think pitchers really wanted to pitch here in this heat. It's kind of funny. I remember going back in '92, if you guys remember, and I know you all do, the Astros had Doug Drabeck and Greg Swindell. They were free agents. It was the best free agent pitching class, I think, ever. Maddox was on the market. What year was this? This was, I think it was '92. Maddox was on the market. I think David Cohn was out there, Dave Stewart, Jimmy Key. There's a few others. I can't remember. Anyway, Drabeck and Swindell were out there, and George Bush wanted them both. George Bush wanted 2 Texans to pitch for the Rangers. And the Rangers had money back then. They had done some, they had traded Ruben Sierra for Canseco, but they'd had some salaries, and the Rangers had money. Well, Drabeck signed early with the Astros. He was the better pitcher of the 2, if you guys remember. And then so Swindell was out there too. And and Bush was telling me, yeah, we want him. So I was trying to call the Hendricks brothers, Alan and Randy Hendricks, all winter long, trying to get them on the phone to ask them about Greg Swindell, and they would never return my calls. They were Houston guys, and I was a Dallas-Fort Worth, I was a Fort Worth guy. So they would never return my calls. So finally one day I said, okay, you're not doing anything. I'm going to call Alan Hendricks one more time just for fun. So I called down there and said, is Alan Hendricks there? And just a minute, this TR Sullivan Fort Worth Star Telegram. Next thing you know, Alan Hendricks is on. Hey, TR, how you doing? What's going on? What can I do for you? I'm like going, holy what is this guy talking to me finally? I said, well, Mr. Hendricks, as you know, Greg Swindell's a free agent. The Rangers want him. I just want to know if Greg would be interested in coming to the Rangers. And he's going, oh, yeah, Greg really wants to come to Arlington. He'd love to play for that team. They got great offense there. It would just be a perfect spot for him. The only thing is he's got to have a 4-year contract. Back then, 4-year contract was a big deal. He says he's got to have a 4-year contract. If they'll give him a 4-year contract, yeah, he would love to come to Texas. He'd love to pitch for the Rangers. So I said, great. I got a big story here. So I type up that story. Swindell interested, coming to the Rangers, wants 4-year deal. Big headlines in the Fort Worth Star Telegram the next morning. By noon that day, the Astros had called a press conference announcing they had signed Greg Swindell to a 4-year contract. I said to myself, Alan, anytime I can help you, go ahead. So anyway, Greg, the answer to your question is, I think that there's still a lot of question marks. If last year it looked like this was going to be a pitcher's park, and I think we found out it wasn't a pitcher's park. It was just that the Rangers' offense was bad. So I think they'll be able to attract more pitching. I think it'll be a better place for pitchers to play, and better endurance, better durability, things like that.
Yeah, because you remember too, the old stadium. I got to go 2 old stadiums. Arlington Stadium, I can't believe the ballpark, as I will always remember it, is defunct as a baseball park. But the old stadium, Arlington Stadium, was here. People here can relate to this. If you've gone out to see the Sugarland Skeeters play, the weather is very comparable. In the old stadium, Arlington Stadium, there was a breeze that came through at night after the sun went down, and it wasn't that terrible once the sun went down. And that's kind of how the Skeeters ballpark is. But the new one, as I called the ballpark in Arlington, just retained all the heat. And now the fans at least have got something that's more relaxing and more comfortable. And I think they can personally probably thank Jerry Jones for that, because once he exposed people to North Texas to a closed roof with air conditioning, the fate was kind of in the cards for the Rangers, wasn't it?
Well, I'm a huge fan of the ballpark in Arlington. I love that place. I used to joke they built the ballpark in Arlington for me personally. So I remember, Greg, and you remember Arlington Stadium. If you go from the dugout to the Rangers clubhouse, you had to go up this long, narrow. It was worse than that thing that Brian showed us, where the Bisons had to walk through. They had that long, snaking tunnel.
Smelly too.
It had a green carpet. It had walls that were dripping down. I told President Bush, or future President Bush, says, Tara, don't you think we need a new stadium? I said, President Bush, or said Mr. Bush that night, Mr. Bush, have you ever read the book? Have you ever read the short story, The Cask of Amontillado by Edgar Allan Poe? And he goes, yeah, I think I remember that. And I said, that's what I feel like. I feel like I'm in the Edgar Allan. So anyway, the ballpark in Arlington was perfect. Tom Schiefer built that ballpark. And there's some things you need to know about that ballpark. One is, first of all, it was not built to play at 7 o'clock. The games were supposed to start later, and they had to move them up earlier because, they've gotten so long. And the other thing was they weren't supposed to be playing during the day during the summer, and they were never going to do that. And the Rangers had permission from Major League Baseball to always play night games, even on getaway days. And the West Coast teams used to hate that because they get to the West Coast too late. But the Rangers had permission to do that. Well, Buck Showalter, and Buck's a good friend of mine. I'm not, but Buck Showalter pretty much said he was tired of playing night games on getaway days. He thought that was impacting his team. So he said, we got to start playing day games. So Major League Baseball said, if you do that, you lose your exemption. We take away your exemption. You'll never be able to go back to night games. And they can't. They were exempt. They could play on Sunday night against ESPN. They could play on Saturday night against national TV. Major League Baseball said, if you do that, you lose your exemption. And then the third thing is that ballpark has got, Greg, since you 94, that ballpark has gone under so many changes that just it messed with the airflow. They just did a lot of things to that ballpark, and it was, to me, it was a perfect ballpark. But then when Tom Hicks took over, and then his guys in there, everybody wanted to make changes. Everybody wanted to put their imprint on the ballpark and change it around. And I don't know if they're doing this down there at your ballpark, Minute Maid, but maybe they are, maybe they aren't. I haven't seen it. But they made too many changes to the ballpark in Arlington. And it just impacted. First of all, it was not supposed to be a hitter's ballpark. It never was. But once they did some renovations in like 2001, and they shut down, they put in a private club behind home plate, and they changed the wind patterns. It became a big hitter's park. So the ballpark in Arlington would have been fine if they, in my opinion, if they had just left the thing alone. Another thing is, I'm not going to name names, but there were some writers in Dallas, some writers in Dallas who complained long and loud in the Dallas paper about the heat. And I think long story short, I think Dallas was always jealous that Arlington got that ballpark, which is in Tarrant County. I think they were always mad that they never got the ballpark in Arlington, and they didn't embrace it as much as the Fort Worth Star-Telegram did. But that's just
where's the ballpark now? Is it in Dallas County?
No, they're both in Arlington and Tarrant County.
Yeah.
My goodness. So whatever happened to Josh Hamilton?
He's down with you guys. He's down on the Brazos River up there in Bryan. He has a ranch down there, and I think he's got some legal trouble still.
Oh dear.
Well, he had a family issue, and he's got to deal with that. I don't know where it is. I don't know where that is now. But Josh was a great talent, great player. Josh's been through a lot of demons. We all love Josh. He was great to us. We were all rooting for him. But just that body went through a lot. He put a lot into that body. He played hard. Josh is just he was just a magnet. I mean, God love him. I mean, one outfielder throws a ball into the stands, and a guy ended up losing his life, leaning over the railing trying to catch the damn thing. And Josh was the one who threw the ball. I mean, that was Josh. I mean, it was just great player, but and a fantastic addition to the team. Helped the team. They don't win in 2010 and 2011 without him, but hopefully I know he bought a ranch. Last I heard, he bought a ranch down on the Brazos River outside Bryan, College Station.
Good.
I want to ask you about.
Go ahead, Mike. You have a question?
I was just wanted to check my memory. I thought when you started comparing Texas and Houston, you were going to talk about like Pudge Rodriguez playing for Texas and Pudge Rodriguez playing for Houston and the number of ball players they shared. But I got to thinking about Texas played St. Louis in the World Series, right?
In 2011.
And they had tried to sign Lance Berkman. And Lance Berkman rejected Texas. He was a free agent at the time because and signed with the Cardinals because he didn't think Texas had a chance to go to the World Series. And then it wound up in Game 7. I believe, if I'm right, the Rangers were winning, and Berkman was at bat in the last inning with the winning run on second. So if he didn't get a hit, the team he didn't sign with because he didn't think they could go to the World Series would beat the team he signed with.
Right.
But he got a hit out to right center and tied up the game, and I think the Cardinals wound up winning that. But that, to me, that was one of the most interesting baseball moments that I'd watched in a long time, and I wonder if you recall that or had any thoughts on it.
Do I remember that? Yes, Mike, I remember that. Long story short, we remember that well. All right, the Rangers had a 7-5 lead going into the 9th inning, and Neftali Feliz was 2 strikes away or 1 strike away. The Cardinals had 2 on with 2 outs, and David Freese was up, and the Rangers Nelson Cruz was supposed to be playing back in right field. The Rangers had him back in what they call no doubles. You guys know what that means. That means the outfield is playing deep. Well, Cruz was out in right field, and he saw David Freese with 2 strikes. So he started moving up in right field because he thought Freese would be protecting the play. So Freese ended up hitting the double. I think it may have been a triple. I can't remember how they scored it. Over Nelson Cruz's head, tied up the game. So we go to the 10th inning. The Rangers get up there, and Josh Hamilton hits a 2-run home run, puts them ahead 11-9. So then we go to the bottom of the inning, and the Rangers Feliz out of the game. The Rangers try to piece it together with their bullpen with Darren Oliver and Scott Feldman, and the Cardinals get 2 on with 2 outs. Runner on second and third. Berkman's up there, and 2 strikes on him, and he lines a 2-run single to center to tie the game. And then we go into the 11th inning, and Freese comes back, hits a home run, and the Cardinals win the game. So yeah, so Berkman had the big hit for the Cardinals that tied the game. So 2 years later, 2013, the Rangers signed Lance Berkman, and he comes to spring training with the Rangers, and Ron Washington's there, and I love Ron Washington. So anyway, Ron Washington's holding his first spring training meeting with all his players, the full squad workout. Before the workout, all the players in camp. Ron has the big first day speech. So Ron's getting there, and Ron doesn't give long speeches, but he just said that the Rangers had come off a tough year the year before. They'd lost the wild card, and he said that he goes, "My guys have been through the wars. We know what the wars are like. We know how to handle the wars, and we'll be ready to fight." And all of a sudden, Berkman pops up from the back of the room. "Yeah, Wash, we've been through the wars, and some of us even won that war." That didn't go well in the Rangers clubhouse. And Berkman was not a big hit. And Lance Berkman's a great guy. We all know, you guys all know Lance Berkman. I'm sure you've met him or dealt with him. He's a great guy, but he's a Houston guy. Rice, he's Houston, and he just was not fit up here. He was not hitting well. I mean, I think the knees had gone bad, and we haven't not had a whole lot of luck with besides Nolan Ryan. I don't know if we've had a whole lot of luck with getting ex-Astros, but with Pudge. Long story short on that one, Pudge was with the Astros in 2009, right? He's with the Astros for a short period in 2009. Then the Rangers traded for him late in the season to kind of finish out the season because their catching was falling apart. Well, the funny thing was that catching was still falling apart in 2010, but the Rangers didn't sign Pudge. They let him go. And he ended up going to the Washington Nationals and having a good year with the Nationals. And the Rangers catching was a mess until they had to trade They had to trade a really good prospect for Benji Gill, who ended up doing a great job. They love Benji Gill here. He ended up catching them and taking them to the World Series. But I thought I've always thought it would been great if Pudge, late in his career, had been able to catch the Rangers in that 2010 and maybe even 2011 World Series.
You do remember then. Good.
I think he remembers every pitch.
He's the dean.
Terrific, terrific. Hey, Chris, how much time do you need, my friend? You're muted. There you are.
It's going to be probably 15, 20 minutes, so I don't want to push it if you don't. We can wait till May.
Okay. Okay. If you don't mind, Chris, unfortunately, does great work, but sometimes we have to postpone him from time to time.
I apologize if I ran too long.
No, it's fascinating.
Great.
It was good stuff. John, you're up. John Lloyd with the trivia.
No. I tried to make this one so that I felt like this illustrious group would get several of these. So I think they will, particularly TK up there, TR, just I think he knows every one of them probably. But okay, so number one, who is the only player in the American League to win the Triple Crown more than once? That's question number one. I'm going to go through all these, and then if you have to have one repeated, we'll go back to the number that you missed. Okay. Number two, who is the oldest living former Major League ball player? Number three, during the 20th century, two teams traded managers during the season. Who were the teams and the managers' names? Number four, Justin Verlander won the Rookie of the Year in 2006 and the MVP and the Cy Young in 2011. Only one other player has won all three awards. Who is it?
Rookie of the Year. Okay.
Rookie of the Year, MVP, and Cy Young. Okay, number five, this individual was the Rookie of the Year with the Kansas City Royals and managed the Cincinnati Reds to a World Series title. Who is he? Number six, one major league team was known as the Americans. What city was that team located in? Number seven, what pitcher was known as the Whip? I'll give you a hint. Roy Campanella indicated he was the toughest pitcher he ever faced. Number eight, who is the youngest professional baseball player ever? Nine, how many times did Babe Ruth win the MVP award? Ten. I changed 10. Let's see here. Ty Cobb had 4,189 hits in his career. 3,900 of them were with Detroit. What was the team he had the 289 other hits with? Number 11, what was Mickey Mantle's original uniform number when he came up with the Yankees?
Use that one last month.
Say it again.
We had that question last month.
Oh, we did? Well, then everybody knows this one.
Yeah, and you won that quiz.
I know. Let's see. There have been 3 major league players named Aurelio. Two of them are Aurelio Rodriguez and Aurelio Monteagudo. Who is the other one?
Holy cow.
Like that was his name.
And they're all dead too. It's amazing.
That'll show them.
Pardon me?
That will show them.
Yeah, well, they died before age 50, all three of them.
Wow.
Number 13. 13 players played Major League Basketball and baseball, but only one won championships in both. Who was it? Number 14. Babe Ruth played for 3 teams. Who were they? Number 15. Everyone knows that Mickey Mantle hit the first home run in the Dome, but who hit the first regular season home run there? Number 16, what was the last season for the St. Louis Browns? Number 17, the Houston franchise has had 3 players who played second base or are in the Hall of Fame. Who are they? Number 18, what professional baseball team originally signed Roger Maris? Number 19, not many families produced 3 brothers who played Major League Baseball. The DiMaggios and the Alous are 2 of them. Who is the third family? Now I'll add a little comment here. There is a family that had 5 brothers that played, but that was in the late 1800s and early 1900s. So you ignore that family.
Last question.
Number 20, he won the Rookie of the Year award by winning 19 games and throwing 24 complete games, but only won 10 games after that. Who was he? The last question, number 21. This player was the starting quarterback for Florida State and played in 4 straight bowl games, winning 2 of them. Despite this, he played 15 years in the major leagues. Who was he? That's 21. I've got extras in case we need them. Okay. Does anybody need a question repeated?
The brother's question.
What number was that? 19.
19.
Yeah, not many families produced 3 brothers who played Major League Baseball. The DiMaggios and the Alous are 2 of them. Who is the third family?
And I need number 3 and number 13.
Okay, number 3. During the 20th century, 2 teams traded managers during the season. Who are the teams and the managers' names? And number 13 is 13 players played Major League Basketball and Major League Baseball, but only one won championships in both. Who was it?
Right.
Ready?
Could you repeat number 20, please?
Yeah, sure. He won the Rookie of the Year award by winning 19 games and throwing 24 complete games, but only won 10 games after that. Who was he? Any other need to be repeated? Okay. The first question, number one, who is the only player in American League to win the Triple Crown more than once? I guess somebody answers it right.
Williams?
Ed Williams?
That's correct. And interestingly, he would have won 3. In 1949, his batting average was 3.427, and George Kell's was 3.429, meaning 1 at bat. And Kell won the batting title by that .0002. And in that season, Ted had 43 home runs and 159 RBIs, and Kell had 3 home runs and 59 RBIs. That's kind of.
I wonder who was MVP that year.
Joe DiMaggio. What year was it?
49. It may have been Williams may have won it.
DiMaggio was the MVP Williams was the MVP in 49.
Okay. All right.
Because DiMaggio was hurt that year.
Yes, he was
hurt that year.
Yeah. Okay, number 2. Who is the oldest living former Major League ball player?
Eddie Robinson.
That is correct. He's from Paris, Texas, and he lives in Fort Worth. And he was born on December 15th, 1920.
There was he gave us the journal about him. He's stood up for more national anthems than anybody in history.
He gave a press conference for us in December, right before his 100th birthday. He gave a press conference for all the writers up here, and he was unbelievable. I mean, he
is incredible.
It was unbelievable.
He played for something like 9 major league teams as well. Although the Yankees he played for about 5 years, which was the longest.
He played for 7 of the then 8 American League teams.
Yeah,
he did. He spoke to us at our 44th SABR convention in Houston, 2014.
He dissected a play in the 1948 World Series, a pickoff play by Bob Feller. He sat there and dissected it for me completely. Amazing.
Well, one of the guys who was on that team just died, Val Heim, that would have been the oldest. He died in the last year or something like that. He was on the 48 team also. Okay, the third question.
When Cleveland made the World Series recently, he was the only living player from the 48 World,
right.
And they forgot to invite him. Somebody had to call him and tell him to invite him. He came to game 2.
He's a real treasure.
Good guy.
Okay, number 3, during the 20th century, 2 teams traded managers during the season. Who are the teams and the managers' names?
Cleveland and Detroit?
I got those.
That's correct.
Jimmy Dykes and Joe Gordon.
Yep, that's it.
Okay.
No, it's Frank Lane was the general manager.
Yeah, Frank Lane said he wanted to trade the whole team, not just the manager. But they wouldn't let him do that, so they just traded managers.
There was
that was worth 4 points.
Say it again.
You get 3 points, right?
4 points.
You can parse it however you want. We'll see. We'll decide if we need some time.
All right. Well, I couldn't remember the managers.
Well, give yourself half credit.
Remember
All right.
I think the fact that you remembered that's really good, I think. Okay, number 4, Justin Verlander won the rookie year in 2006 and the MVP and Cy Young in 2011. One other player has won all 3 awards. Who was it?
Newcomb?
That's it.
Oh.
He won the Rookie of the Year in 1949 and the Cy Young and MVP in 1956.
Oh, years later. Okay.
Yeah, this next one I have a feeling everybody got. He was the Rookie of the Year with the Kansas City Royals and managed the Cincinnati Reds to a World Series title. Who was he?
Lou Piniella.
Yep. He's the rookie of the year with the Royals. When we were talking about the Royals earlier in the conversation here tonight, he was the rookie of the year for those Royals in '69. And then won the World Series in '90 with the Reds.
He went to camp in '69. He went to camp with the Seattle Pilots.
Yeah, got traded.
Yeah,
That's
just
right.
started morning. Yeah.
Because I was looking at that and I was thinking, how come he has no Seattle Pilots records and he got traded? Because he was on the roster of the Pilots.
Yeah.
Because I was going to ask a question about the Pilots, but then it turned out he didn't have any stats. So I thought, well, I better leave that one alone. Okay, one major league team was known as the Americans. What city was that team located in?
Boston.
That's correct, from 1901 to 1907.
Oh my, okay.
And then they changed their name to the Red Sox in 1908. Number 7, what pitcher was known as the Whip?
Blackwell.
That's right. Went to 6 consecutive All-Star games and primarily pitched for the Reds from 42 to 55. So he was with some other teams a little bit. Who is the youngest professional baseball player ever?
Joe Nuxhall.
Yep. 15 years, 10 months, and 10 days. He pitched 1 inning for the Reds in 1944.
I think there's one guy who was younger. Anyway.
He beat Carl Scheib's record.
Yeah, I saw the list of all the youngest players, and he beat somebody by some small amount. But
Carl Scheib from San Antonio finished up.
One interesting thing that I did encounter when I was doing that question, I said professional baseball, youngest Major League Baseball player ever. There is another answer in July 19th, 1952 in the Georgia State League. 12-year-old Joe Louis Relaford batted and played right field for the Fitzgerald Pioneers.
Oh.
And he's in the Hall of Fame. I mean, it's a big deal in the Hall of Fame about that guy, Joe Relaford. I thought that was amazing. I'd never even heard of him.
He peaked early.
Yeah. Well, he played very well in that game. 9. How many times did Babe Ruth win the MVP award?
None.
1.
0.
None.
1.
The answer is 1. He won it in 1923.
Did they have an MVP then?
Yeah, they did, but it said up to 1930, previous winners were ineligible. Then when 1930 came along, other people were winning it.
When did they start the MVP?
They had it in different formats.
Yeah.
The one we know started in the 30s. Prior to that, they had some in different formats off and on through the first 3
So
decades.
technically, we were right, Tony, because they didn't have an MVP.
I think we'll take that.
Well, the MVP he won it in 1923.
Okay.
Then that award went away, so it's
okay. The Ty Cobb question: who was the other team he played for?
A's.
That's right. Amazingly enough, he played on Connie Mack's Philadelphia A's in 27 and 28, and they came in second to the Yankees both years.
He had a fine batting average in both years, didn't he?
He had a really good batting average, but his lifetime was 366, and his average on those 2 years was only 350 and 337.
I would take that today.
Yeah.
He was only 44.
He was 40 and 41.
40 and 41, okay.
Okay, what was Mickey Mantle's original uniform number?
6.
That's right. And he went to play for the Kansas City Blues, came back a few months later, and they gave him number 7. Okay, there have been 3 major league players named Aurelio. 2 of them are Aurelio Rodriguez and Aurelio Monteagudo. Who is the other one?
Senor Smoke.
Yes.
Exactly.
Member of the 86 team here.
Yeah,
Senor Smoke.
Had him in here because he played for the Astros in 86 and 87.
That's right.
Yeah.
So it's Lopez?
Aurelio Lopez.
Yeah, Senor Smoke.
Yeah. And he was also a very big star on the 84 Tigers that won the World Series. where they Willie Hernandez and Senior Smoke as their bullpen. Okay, 13 players at number 13. 13 players played Major League Basketball and baseball, but only one won championships. I was amazed that 13 players had done both.
Yeah.
That was the first thing. I couldn't believe that. But only one
Dick
is won.
Groat? Dick Groat?
That's a good guess. Dick Groat did play. He didn't win a championship in basketball, though.
Dave DeBuscher?
Say it again.
Dave DeBuscher?
That's another good guess. He played for the White Sox, but they didn't win any championships when he was playing. He was 62 to 64.
Okay.
Gene Conley?
Yeah, Gene Conley.
Conley is the answer.
Who?
He
What?
played, Gene Conley was on the 57 Braves that won. He was also on the 58 Braves that lost.
Oh,
And then he was on the 59 to 61 Celtics that won the NBA.
that's true. Okay.
Number 14, Babe Ruth played for 3 teams. Who were they?
Boston, New York, and Boston.
That's correct. In 1935, he finished his career playing for the Boston Braves. I was amazed. I knew it, but I looked at it. He had kind of crummy stats for that year. Okay, everyone knows Mickey Mantle hit the first home run in the Dome, but who hit the first regular season home run there?
Oh, Mark.
Richie Allen.
That's right, Richie Allen.
Oh.
Richie Allen on April 12th, 1965, hit the first home run.
I was there.
One thing that's kind of interesting I read when I was reading this stuff was that Mantle hit the home run on April 9th, but the day before, Joe Morgan hit the first home run in the stadium against a college team that they had an exhibition against. So I thought that's kind of funny that Joe Morgan had hit the first home run, the real first, but not in a regular season game.
And the first Hall of Fame pitcher to pitch in the Dome was.
Satchel Paige,
That's right.
but not in the game.
No, they brought him in before the season started.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. What was the last season for the St. Louis Browns?
51?
53.
53, that's correct. They moved to Baltimore in 54. The Houston franchise has had 3 players who played second base and are in the Hall of Fame. Who are they?
Fox, Morgan, and Biggio.
That's it. Fox, Morgan, and Biggio.
Get 3 correct for that one?
Yes. Fox was on the team in 64 and 65. Then you know I'm sure the other years for those guys. Who was the first, the professional team that signed Roger Maris?
Cleveland.
That's it, the Indians.
Wow.
I have his baseball card.
Yeah, I do too. I have that same card. Except for it's a 58. He's still with the Indians in 58. Then they got to the A's, and they were the A's, the farm team, the Yankees, and you know what happened. 19, not many families produced 3 brothers who played Major League Baseball. The DiMaggios and the Lews are 2 of them. Who is the 3rd family?
Molina?
Boyer.
Boyers.
I had the Delahunty brothers, but
The Boyers is the answer.
Lee, Ken, and Claude.
I will go with Molina's as an answer also, though.
Molina, yeah.
The Boyers had Cloyd Boyer, who played for the Cardinals and the A's in the early 50s. And then in his last year at the A's, they signed Cleat there, and then he got traded to the Yankees, as you know. And then the Ken Boyer played for the Cardinals mainly.
yeah.
Would the Luke brothers count?
Well, that wouldn't count because I said the DiMaggios and Lews are 2 of the families.
Okay, yeah.
My
mistake.
I wrote down the Ed Delahunty and his brothers, but that's too early, I guess.
No, I mentioned that I knew about the Delahantys. They had 5 brothers that played in Major League Baseball from like 1883 to 1915.
Yeah, Big Ed died near Buffalo.
Yeah. he was the main guy. The other 4 didn't have big time careers, but they played a lot.
Yeah, policy died in here.
Number 20, he won the Rookie of the Year award by winning 19 games and throwing 24 complete games, but only won 10 games after that. Who was he?
Wally Bunker.
Mark Fidrich.
Mark the Bird Fidrich.
Oh, my bird.
I got to see him pitch 3 times. I was really amazed. I was up in Detroit and saw him pitch 3 games. Amazing. And the stadium was packed. I mean, not a seat in the house for those games.
Also pitched in the All-Star game, I think.
Yeah.
There's a great story about the pitchers that came up in the 70s that got abused because back in the early 70s, those guys were throwing 300 innings a year. And some of those young pitchers that came up, like John Montefusca and Bob Nepper was kind of a guy too. A lot, Fidrich was another one, but there's a whole generation of pitchers. And if you look in the 80s, there's not that many pitchers in the Hall of Fame from that whole era. A lot of pitchers got abused, and Fidrich was one of them. I mean, think about 24 complete games as a rookie. I mean, just imagine that nowadays.
Who was your guy with Texas?
Games after that, he had the 24 in the seasons after that. Those were all complete games.
Mm-hmm.
David Kyle.
But the thing that's interesting is Fidrich did not win the Cy Young. Fidrich pitched like 230 innings or something like that. Jim Palmer pitched 315 innings and won the Cy Young that year.
Who was the guy?
Palmer was a great campaign manager. Palmer had a great campaign manager. It was himself.
Yes.
Who was the guy for Texas they burned out, that kid?
David Kyle.
David Clyde.
Clyde, yeah. Clyde, that's it.
Yep. I saw his very first game there in that old Arlington Stadium that we were talking about, the original one where the wind blew in from right field and knocked down all of Jeff Burrow's home runs. Mm-hmm. Where he had 30 home runs. He would have probably had 50 if the wind hadn't been blowing in. Okay, last question, 21. This player was the starting quarterback for Florida State and played in 4 straight bowl games, winning 2 of them. Despite this, he played 15 years in the Major League Baseball. Who was he?
Todd Helton.
It's a good guess.
Burt Reynolds. Oh, no, never mind.
That's another good Joe Mauer.
Oh, my.
Oh, really?
I did not know that.
Played for the Twins from 04 to 18. He was the starting quarterback all 4 years for Florida State.
I think he won the batting title once or twice.
Yes, he did, 361.
Yeah. Okay, that's it. I hope it was fast enough.
How many points? The quiz.
Yeah, did anybody have?
Points?
All right.
I got 20. I got 27. Is that correct? Number 27 answers.
That's how many you got right, Bob?
No, that's the number total.
That's the number.
I only got 26, Mike. I only got 26.
Big score.
Wow, who had 20 correct out of that? 15? 10?
I had 15.
I got 30.
You're going too fast.
Yeah.
I had 17.
17. That's great. That's what I was hoping, is that most people would be in the teens, was what my hope was on this quiz.
I think I have 17.
Yeah.
Oh, Tony.
Whoever gets to win, if you want a tiebreaker, I've got a couple that, so you could do the trivia quiz next time.
I'm concerned I may be out of town next time if no one's about 17.
Well, that gives the tie to Tony.
I had 16.
Well, Bob, you get to pick the winner. Who's the winner out of this?
Well, I think it's been a while since Tony's done it. Tony, are you agreeable?
Yeah. I'm going to. This was a great quiz. It really was. Thank
you. I tried to keep it so that I felt like
everybody, especially about trading managers. Oh boy.
One thing I had there, another Frank Lane question that I didn't use was Frank Lane and the general manager of the Tigers, traded the home run king from the previous year for the batting champion for the previous
King and Colavito.
That's right. I lived in Detroit when that happened, and we were so excited when we got Colavito. We couldn't believe it.
Thank you.
There was a fictional character, remember, called Trader Horn, who made a movie called Trader Horn. He was in the 30s. He was going out there hunting wild game in Africa. And Frank Lane came along. They just called him Trader Lane.
Yep.
He earned it.
All right. Our next meeting will be on May 15th. Excuse me, May 17th. Is that right? May 17th. Joe will be our host, and Tony will do the trivia. For your information, we've had 35 people who've entered the Astros win contest. The high guess or estimate was Tom Clemens, who's on right now. It was 102.
Looking good.
I have two people who said the Astros would not break 500, and they had 78 wins. And one of those is on the broadcast right now. Where is he? Unless he just quit just as minute. Greg Lucas and Josh Sullivan both said 78.
Wow.
And everybody else is in between. I'll try to get those numbers out to you also. One last thing is I do think, Tony, we have the newsletter full for the and Scott, I think the letter is full for publishing next week, and we're looking for articles for next quarter.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
You never did get a show of hands for do we want to meet at the Skeeters game in June? I'll do that for you if you want to.
Okay. Okay, you can be in charge of that, Mike, and we'll get something out to everybody so they can get back to you. And I'll get your home address so they can mail the checks to you.
So
You
Bob,
want to do that or not?
Bob,
Sir?
when again in June do you want to do this? Because I'm going to be in Florida from the 5th to the 10th.
I don't care. It could be any time in June. We have to
Okay.
check the home schedule. You know, it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be on a Monday. So we'll let Mike kind of check the schedule and see what days we can. He likes Mondays because of the special. That day.
The dollar margaritas, yeah.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Brian. Thank you to you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian.
Appreciate it, everybody. And take care. Stay well.
And thank you
you
for
for
our
having me.
speakers. Good
Thank you.
job. Yeah,
Good
Good
stories
job,
on
John.
college.
Good job.
Take care.
very enjoyable. Good
Thank you.
quiz.
And we had
Thank you.
Marcia. You're still there. We had 25 people. Marcia, you hear that? No, she's gone.
Yeah,
she's
No, she's
Here.
there. She's saying yes.
Very good. Thanks, Joe.
Joe, can you send me the list of books on an email or something? I didn't see it when it went through.
It's
Oh,
on the chat right now, I think, with the link.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at it.
I saw the Bill Buckner, but then I didn't see anything else. So
13 new
Well,
books.
I tell you what, John, I'll trade something. If you want to send me the trivia contest and the answers, I'll put it on the webpage under trivia time, and I'll send you this list of books here.
okay, I'll have to change one of them because I took out the Harvey Keene Colavito question and I'll insert the Ty Cobb. So I'll fix that and send that to you. It's in Excel. I think it's Excel. Maybe it's Word. I'll have to look back and look.
No
Is that
problem.
okay?
No
Okay,
problem.
we'll do. All right,
I
thanks.
think that link lists 13 books, John.
Okay,
They got
all right.
Glenn Burke and yeah.
Okay,
And
Ozary.
one of the reasons I asked, there's 2 Astros books coming out later this year about the scandal. So
wow. I like the one about the Dave Parker, though. He's from Cincinnati. He grew up in Cincinnati, and then he played for the Pirates, and he came back to Cincinnati, played for the Reds. I mean, it was interesting.
Yeah.
I saw him play a lot.
all right, I'll see y'all later.
Okay,
All right.
thanks.